What kind of vegetables were available for use in the Middle Ages? How did medieval physicians classify them under the humoral theory? Did medieval parents have the same trouble as modern parents in getting their kids to eat their veggies? These and other questions will be answered right after this. I am Professor Jerome Arkenberg, and I've been teaching a wide variety of history courses at colleges across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the vegetables available to and used by chefs, cooks, and others in the Middle Ages, and the humoral qualities given to these vegetables by medieval physicians, including their recommended use. But first, make sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, and that little bell thingy so I can continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. Artichoke. Native to the Mediterranean, the artichoke was eaten by the ancient Greeks and Romans, was improved in Islamic Spain, then spread from Naples to Florence in 1466, to Venice in 1480, to Avignon in the south of France in 1532, and to Northern Europe, specifically to England, only in 1535. Artichoke hearts in oil were common, as were recipes for stuffing them, or frying and steaming the leaves and eating them as a side dish. Arugula, native to the Mediterranean and grown as an edible herb by the Romans, was in use across medieval Europe by the 10th century in potages, and in Italy specifically in salads. Medieval physicians, however, said arugula should not be eaten unless it was paired with lettuce. After the fall of the Roman Empire, asparagus was mainly grown in Arab Syria, Egypt, and Spain, but by the end of the Middle Ages, it was cultivated in France, and by the early 16th century in England too. It was usually boiled and seasoned, but sometimes also coated in flour and fried. Medieval physicians praised it as quite nutritious. Beans. Medieval Europeans ate both green and dried broad beans, usually known in Italy as the fava bean, as no other type of bean, other than the chickpea or the garbanzo bean, of which later, was known until the discovery of the New World, at least in Europe. Broad beans were popular during Lent and for making famine bread. However, beans were thought suitable only for monks and the poor, as medieval physicians warned the nobility and other upper classes against them, asserting that they caused dizziness, confusion, malaise, and an abundance of bad humors. Beets. Both the roots and leaves of beets were eaten in the Middle Ages, mostly by peasants and the poor. They were rarely used as an ingredient in sauces and broths, or, despite their deliciously red color, as a coloring agent in dishes for the nobility and upper classes. Physicians said beets had a cold and moist nature, but they did say it was okay to extract juice from their leaves as a stool softener. The root, burned and mixed with honey, was considered a remedy against hair loss. So if you're going bald and you are living in the Middle Ages, you might want to consider taking the root, burning it, mixing with honey, and wiping it all over your head. Broccoli. Broccoli was eaten by the Romans and was commonly eaten in medieval Italy. However, it did not spread north of the Alps until the 17th century, and not to England until the mid-18th century, at which point school children, boys and girls all over England regretted that. Oh no, Mom, not broccoli again. Cabbage, known and eaten by the Greeks and Romans, was a staple in the Low Countries and in the German lands. There, it was usually boiled or made into sauerkraut and eaten 3 to 4 times a day by the peasantry and lower classes, but rarely by the wealthy. Why? Medieval physicians asserted that it generated melancholy and caused nightmares, but not, oddly enough, gas. It was, however, thought by the same physicians an antidote for hangovers, laryngitis, and for dressing wounds. The carrot, eaten in medieval Europe, was introduced by the Arabs probably between the 8th and 10th centuries as a tasty purplish and red variety, as we see here. This is the original color of the carrot, these two, not the one in between. The modern orange carrot was only developed in Holland in the 17th century. Carrots came to France, the Low Countries, and Germany in the 14th century, and to Britain in the 15th century. Medieval physicians said that carrots had the same dietetic qualities as parsnips, so see below for parsnips. Cauliflower. Cauliflower was known to the Greeks from the 6th century BC and were first introduced to the rest of Europe in the 12th century, when the Arabs brought it from Syria to Spain. However, it did not appear in France until the 16th century and the rest of Europe until the 18th century, disappointing many a poor child. Celery. Native to the Mediterranean region, celery was grown as a vegetable for winter and early spring, as physicians asserted it was useful to cleanse the body of the excess salt of winter food. It did not, however, appear in either Britain or Scandinavia until the 17th century. Its stalks were added to potages, its leaves to salads, and its seeds used as a spice, especially in French cuisine. Chard. Chard, native to the Mediterranean, and there used in potages and salads, was in use in France by the 14th century, and in England, Central and Northern Europe by the 15th century. According to medieval physicians, it had the same qualities, humoral qualities, as arugula. And of course, see above for that. The chickpea or garbanzo bean, the only other type of bean known in Europe besides the fava bean. Chickpeas, or garbanzo beans, had been popular throughout the Mediterranean since ancient Egypt, and played an important role in Arab cuisine, as well as in Spain, southern France, Italy, and Sicily. Medieval physicians, though, warned of its production of flatulence, urine, and menstruation, but also, however, thought of it as a cure for kidney and bladder stones. Cucumber. Originating in southern India, the cucumber was common in medieval Europe, with physicians saying it was useful against fever, for cooling the body in hot climates, and for people with a naturally hot temperament. Dandelions. Dandelions, native to Eurasia, have been eaten as both a vegetable and an herb since the Neolithic. In the Middle Ages, the leaves were often sautéed or blanched to remove bitterness, and it was used in pottages, as a garnish, and as a solid green. Eggplant. Originally from India, eggplants were introduced to medieval Europe by the Arabs. But outside Spain and Italy, it only found slow acceptance, where the eggplants were usually peeled, cored, and stuffed, or chopped, fried, seasoned, and then cooked again. Medieval physicians warned of their melancholic humor. Garlic was an important flavoring across medieval Europe, while used since time immemorial as a cure for everything from headaches to snakebite, including warding off the plague. Plus, with its qualities of extreme heating and drying effect on the body, according to medieval physicians, garlic was believed to incite lust. It was often used as an aphrodisiac. So next time you're out with your significant other, hey babe, let's have some garlic on that. Gourds. Gourds were cultivated in medieval Europe, and medieval physicians considered them as cold and moist, and thus good to eat for the nobility and upper classes. Also considered useful as a thirst quencher, a laxative, and as beneficial to the young and in hot temperatures. Kale. Though native to Greece, due to its adaptability to cold climes, in medieval Europe, kale was commonly eaten in medieval Scotland and Scandinavia, usually in pottages, often with a ham broth plus onions and pork sausages. Leeks. Leeks were cultivated and consumed across Europe in the Middle Ages. According to medieval physicians, they had the same dietetic qualities as onions, but were said to create more flatulence. To avoid this, cooks were advised to boil them twice in different pots of water. Lentils. Lentils, which range in color from yellow to red-orange to green, brown, and black, are native to the Near East, where they were one of the first domesticated crops, and in the Middle Ages were commonly used in pottages, as they were an important part of the peasant diet, in part because dried out they can be stored almost indefinitely. However, in the Middle Ages, even the nobility and upper classes enjoyed them as a Lenten substitute for meat, despite the view of medieval physicians who asserted they caused flatulence, badly affected eyesight, and caused both epilepsy and nightmares. Lettuce. Lettuce, though popular with the Greeks and Romans, played a minor role in medieval cuisine before the 15th century. Why? Because medieval physicians classified it as so cold and moist in nature that it would quench any thirst for beer or wine, oh my, and extinguish any feelings of lust. So, essentially, it is the anti-aphrodisiac. Apparently better than taking a cold shower. Mushrooms. Since prehistoric times, fungi of various kinds have been gathered and eaten in Europe. So, besides the common field mushroom, popular with the peasantry and lower classes, chanterelles, morels, and truffles were favored by the nobility and other upper classes. Medieval physicians warned, however, of their harmful moisture and earthiness that were thought to cause melancholy. Olives and olive oil. Olives originated in Persia and Mesopotamia, and as in antiquity, both the olive and olive oil were staples around the medieval Mediterranean. But as in Northern Europe, the olive could not be grown, and olive oil was an expensive import, there butter was more commonly used. Medieval physicians classed olives and their oil as moderately warm and moist that gained in heat as they aged, and black olives were thought to stimulate the appetite. Onions. Native to the Mediterranean, because of the bad breath they caused, onions were associated with the peasants and lower classes, who ate them both raw and cooked whole. But they were also added to a variety of sauces, broths, and stuffing. Medieval physicians praised cooked onions for their heating and diuretic effects on the body, and ability to incite appetite. However, when consumed raw, these same medieval physicians thought onions caused headache, stomachache, and superfluous humors, especially phlegm. Parsnips. Sweet and starchy, the white parsnip was used in the Middle Ages as a substitute for honey and sugar, which were substantially more expensive, especially sugar. Easily stored for the winter in a cool place or left in the ground until needed, parsnips were an important vegetable, especially for peasants. Peas. Peas had been a staple in Europe for thousands of years and were eaten in the Middle Ages by all classes, either fresh or dried, especially during winter, Lent, and fast days. They were also a key ingredient in soups and pottages and were approved by medieval physicians as food easy to digest. Purslane. Purslane, native throughout the Old World, in the Middle Ages was used in pottage and salads, and was commonly cooked with chicken dishes. Medieval physicians considered them to have the same qualities as lettuce. Radishes. Radishes, known to the Greeks and Romans, are not mentioned in any medieval sources until the 13th century. Medieval physicians then classed them as warm and dry, useful as a diuretic, but generating bad humors. However, they were held to be beneficial for those with a cold complexion, for the weak as a beneficial winter food, and especially beneficial for those living in the cold, cold north. Scallions. Scallions, spring or green onions, pretty much the same thing, were in common usage in medieval Europe, particularly in pottages, pasta, and seafood dishes. Medieval physicians gave them the same humoral classifications as leeks. Shallots. Shallots originated in Central or Southeast Asia, from whence they traveled, presumably not by themselves, to India and the Eastern Mediterranean with the name shallot coming from the Canaanite city of Ashkelon. Having a milder flavor than the onion, shallots were used in potages and seafood, and were classified by medieval physicians as, you guessed it, the same as onions. Spinach. Cultivated in Persia by the 4th century, spinach was a favorite of the Arabs, who brought it to Spain in the 11th century, and from thence it spread slowly to the rest of Europe, where it was frequently boiled together with other green vegetables or parboiled and fried. Its juice used as a favorite coloring agent. Medieval physicians classified it as moderately cold and moist, good for the chest and for coughs, but bad for digestion. Somebody will need to tell Popeye about this. Turnips. Turnips generally played a minor role in cookery for the medieval nobility and other upper classes, though peasants, artisans, and others in the lower classes commonly ate turnips boiled with beef or butter, or pickled like sauerkraut, while turnip greens were used in potages. Medieval physicians described turnips as hot and moist, good for the chest and the lungs, and as an appetite stimulant when combined with vinegar and salt. They did, however, said turnips caused flatulence. So, let me know what you liked about this video and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos, and click on that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.